going. All right, I just like to wait for my chat to show up. It takes a spell. There we go. All right, beautiful. You can see the chat. That means we're live. Hello. And let me go to our big screen. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live stream. Tonight, we have a special guest on. We have Chris from Treantmonk's Temple. And we're going to be talking about the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. We're going to have a general discussion, some back and forth. We'll take questions from you all as well. We're going to be approaching it from the Game Master's perspective to a large degree because, frankly and selfishly, that's what I care about the most because I'm a Dungeon Master. But we'll also talk about just things in general. So I'm sure players will get some value out of this as well. So that's what we're doing. You guys are welcome to ask questions. We're probably going to have a hard time just scrolling through chat, so if you want to get our attention, a super chat's going to be the best way to do that. But that's pretty much what we're doing tonight, just a general discussion about this. We're going to see if this thing's any good or if it sucks or something in between or who knows. I have no idea. And by the way, Treantmonk, they can all see your wonderful face now on screen. There we go. So I was telling Treantmonk, Chris, beforehand, that I have no idea what's in this thing except for what I look at on YouTube and the internet because I don't get advanced copies of these things. So I'm just dependent. I've literally binged every video he has. Oh, he's going to show it off. He's going to rub it in my face. Look at that. Oh, gosh.
Right side up.
So I saw, Steven from Roll for Combat had a pile of those at Gen Con and he showed me one of them. And the first thing I looked at was the binding, and I was so happy to see quality binding. It's the 16-page thread sewn binding, you know, and they actually had a colored.
I've done the page test, so I'm gonna risk it again now.
Yeah, I was.
This is a heavy book.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I was so happy to see that they finally did a quality binding. So I'm gonna have to pre-order this thing or buy it like everybody else if I want one. And I will be interested to see if they're all like that, because my fear was they just did that for Gen Con and then the rest will be like that glue bound crap, you know? So
they haven't done glue bound in a while.
Haven't they?
They did in second edition when it first came out, and then everybody's books ended up in binders.
No, but that's what I have right now. All of my 5th edition books are just the cheap glue bound. Yeah, absolutely. There's only one of them that has like thread bound binding. Only one of them. All the rest of them are the cheap junk. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're buying your books from a different place, and I need to find out where that is.
Maybe I don't think I've had that issue with the 5th. But anyway. Anyway,
so I was happy to see that. But anyway, tell us about you a little bit, Chris, and what you do and all that kind of stuff, and then we're going to jump in.
Okay. I'm a full-time YouTuber. That I do Dungeons & Dragons. Well, I do role-playing content in general, but I focus mainly on Dungeons & Dragons because that's my game. And I do a lot of rules analysis. I look for interesting interactions with the rules. I like to do deep dives. And do a few builds as well, like optimization builds.
Sweet, awesome. So you like doing builds?
Yeah, I like doing builds.
I'm not a build guy. When I am a player, I usually I don't splash anything. I just build a straight character, and I don't know when I'm a player. Usually I die a lot too, so I have to build characters quickly, which means you can't do a lot of research. You know, I die a lot because I'm reckless when I'm a player. And I do stupid stuff and it gets me killed, you know, but that's sweet. Okay, cool. Let's jump into this discussion. I had a couple questions pre-prepared to guide us as we go. So what is the biggest improvement you see with the 2024 over the 2014? And for the sake of our discussion, we're just going to say old edition and new edition, because saying the numbers over and over again over 2 hours is going to kill me. So what's the biggest improvement of the new edition that you can see?
I guess the quick answer would be layout. I think it's easier to find rules.
Okay.
And they like in the old book, it was a major issue sometimes to figure out how stuff was supposed to work. Like the players want to achieve surprise on an enemy. How does surprise work? Well, I'll go to this chapter and it tells me this thing, and then I go to this other chapter and it gives me another little piece of information.
Yeah.
And one more for one more piece of information, and only if I know to look in those places. Right. Otherwise,
right.
You could go to the index and it'll send you all over the place. So much better layout this time around. If I want to look something up, I can find it pretty fast. So I think that's got it. Like if we're talking about just the book in general, that's a huge improvement. I think just for quality of life.
Okay, so that's excellent to know. I used to be a technical writer, and one of the most important things in tech writing is usability, right? Is the information usable? Can someone read it, understand it, apply it, type of thing? So that's very good to hear. Now, what about as far as like the rules themselves?
For me, I think the biggest improvement is in character. Let's see. I'm tempted to say character options, but that's 80% of the book. Yeah, I really like what they've done with classes and subclasses. How about that?
What have they done with classes and subclasses then that's different from the old edition?
Okay, so the first thing is I note a more linear progression in terms of abilities that you gain, things that make sense, like the number of wild shapes scaling with your level, rather than just being 2 at level 2 and it's 2 at level 19.
Okay.
Right? There's a number of features that have just been a lot of wording changes that where things weren't 100% clear before that have been cleared up.
Okay.
Wild shape's another great example there, because the old version wild shape, really hard to know exactly how things worked. Much better this time around.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff I like it because it's new. I like new stuff. Some stuff gets tired, and then you give me new things to play with. I like that.
Yeah, I was listening to part of, I believe it was a live stream that you did with Colby from.
It was pre-recorded, but
was it pre-recorded? Okay.
It was off the cuff. Yeah.
Okay, I listened to part of that, and I remember there was this one part where if I remember correctly, correct me if I got it a little bit wrong, but the conversation was basically, are you going to keep using content from the old books as well? And Colby's answer was basically like, yeah, sure, I'll keep doing builds from there as well, use new and old type of thing. And then you were like, oh, no, it's all new stuff.
Yeah.
So when you say that you like new stuff, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Is it partly because it's been out for 10 years and you're just kind of like, I'm bored with this stuff?
So I play D&D a lot, like 3 to 4 times a week, fairly regularly.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So this 10-year-old stuff for me is really old. Like I see some of the things I see regularly, week after week, month after month, year after year.
Yeah.
And they were lots and lots of fun, and now they're just getting. It's like reading the same book 20 times. The 20th time isn't as good as the first time.
Yeah. I have a bad memory, so I actually reread series, and it's always as good because I never remember details. But I understand totally what you're saying, because as a game master, I feel the same way, because I've been a dungeon master for 5th edition since not quite 10 years. I didn't start DMing exactly when 5th edition came out, but pretty close to it. And I run a game at least once a week. Sometimes there's an additional game in there. So if you're running a game every single week, not nearly as much play time as you have, obviously, but I'm in the same boat where I'm just tired of 5th edition. I'm tired of the same rules. But for me, has nothing to do with player options, because I never make players. I almost never. I don't care about player character options. I'm mostly concerned about more high-level rules changes. For instance, one of the things that frustrates me a lot is enemies that are kind of bags of hit points. Like, they have lots of hit points and their DPS is kind of low, and it just makes for a long, boring battle where about halfway through, you know the characters are going to win.
Yeah.
They'd have to do something catastrophic to lose. And yet, you also know that you have this adventuring day mechanic. So if you were to just say, hey, you know what, guys? You won. Let's finish this battle up narratively. Then you wouldn't be depleting their resources, which will affect future encounters and your boss fight and short rests and stuff. And so it's like the game has got this mechanism that kind of makes you have to embrace the slog unless you're willing to just say screw it and just wing it and throw crazy stuff at them and hope that it kind of works, you know, which I know a lot of people are fine with that, but there's part of me that's just like, I really want them to reduce monster hit points, just say by half, double their DPS, make combat faster, make things more exciting, you know what I mean? And just be like, I got hit for 20 and I have 40 hit points. Holy crap. You know, we got to do something instead of just like, oh, that was 5 hit points. That was 2. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I had a one shot I ran not long ago where there are a bunch of bone devils, which are a big bag of hit points. And,
they're like CR15. Those aren't jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ran it for a few different groups. It was part of my Patreon. So they play with me and I run it for like 5 different groups.
Right.
And we ran it the first time and it was just a huge slog.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Was this part of a module or something that you were running it?
It was I homebrew.
The homebrew, but you were using the monster, the Bone Devils.
But I was using the Bone Devil out of the monster manual.
Gotcha.
So what I did is, I said, okay, these aren't Bone Devils anymore. They're Bone Devil Vanguards. They have half the hit points. And then I really hit it on their attacks and ran it for the next 4 groups. And it was way better.
Right.
Way better.
Oh,
because,
yeah,
they get hit once and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I 100%
gotta do
agree.
something. Yeah.
Right now, so one of the adventure modules I've written was Into the Fae, and I'm almost finished up with Escape from the Fae right now, and I'm playtesting Escape from the Fae with my patrons, and we custom made all of the monsters in this Escape from the Fae, which will be published in the future. But so far, one of my notes that I'm taking away from our playtest is the monsters have way too many hit points, they live way too long, and these battles are too stinking long. And what we're doing though is like when we make our monsters, we follow the rules in the Dungeon Master guide that they gave us. You know what I mean? Because we're good little boys and girls, I suppose, and we follow the rules. But that has resulted. Now I'm playtesting it. I'm just like, I need half the hit points and twice the DPS, roughly. And then these are going to be such better fights. They'll be more interesting, and they won't take as long at the table. It'll just everything improves. And so I think that that's one of the things we're probably going to have to end up doing for all of our monsters is double hit, roughly, fewer hit points, more DPS, because these battles are just sloggy in my opinion. Yeah. So hey, there we go. Now we don't have the monster manual out yet. So
no, so I can't really comment on what they've done in regards to that.
Yeah.
I know there's been some talk from Jeremy Crawford that monsters are going to hit harder, especially at higher challenge ratings.
Okay.
But sometimes he says stuff and it ends up being such a tiny little thing, right?
They said that they said that for Monsters of the Multiverse, right? And did that really change anything?
I mean, some of the monsters hit harder.
Yeah.
But it definitely I guess we'll have to see when the monster manual comes out. But I'm not holding my breath, right?
Oh yeah. I hear you. What I really
I homebrew monsters all the time these days.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of time to homebrew monsters for the games I run, But for our publications, we make a lot of homebrew monsters. But what was I gonna say? Crap! I was gonna say something about what my fear is you know how they took Volo's Guide to Monsters and then Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes?
Tome of Foes.
Yeah. And then they republished it as the Monsters of the Multiverse. So what I really hope is that we get something more robust in the 2024 Monster Manual, instead of just kind of like a republishing with some tweaks. You know what I mean? I would love to see monsters like we discussed hit harder, have fewer hit points so battles are faster. But another thing I think that would be great is if monsters could do more cool stuff. You know,
Yes.
like just
Yeah.
cool abilities, things that make them stand out. Like the giant is the quintessential boring monster, right? Second hit points, it does damage, but that's kind of it, you know. So if monsters just had more flair to them, I think that would also make for more engaging combats, you know. So
And again, I'm not holding my breath, and that is again something I tend to homebrew. Right, I like to give monsters something that the characters have never seen before, that makes them think and maybe adjust tactics. But
yeah,
I tend to come up with that stuff. Like, it's not published in the book, though. To some degree, that's good because my players have usually read the monster manual anyway.
That's true.
So if I want to surprise them, it's better to have something they've never seen.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things I started playing. Everybody did this almost with the OGL. Everybody started playing different game systems, you know. And one of the ones that I started playing was Pathfinder 2. And one of the things that I'm really enjoying right now about PF2 is that the battles are quicker. They're just quicker and they're more exciting. Critical hits happen a lot more, which if you're the players and you're critting a lot, monsters die faster. That's good. If you're the monsters and you're critting a lot, the players are losing hit points much faster and they're like, holy crap, they freak out and the battles become that much more interesting. You know, so we're level 6 now, so I mean we'll see what happens in high level play, you know, but so far it's much faster, way more interesting. Now there's a lot of conditions to track. There's way more conditions to track than in 5th edition, so there's a trade-off. And if it weren't for
modifiers,
if it weren't for the modifiers, yes, but tracking the conditions we have condition cards with dice on them, and then that's a tactical nightmare. If it weren't for that, I would just be like happy little, you know, it'd be spectacular. But
there's a lot of looking stuff up too.
Yes, I wing it half of the time. If we're in battle and it's extremely important that we get it right, I'll look it up. But especially if it's not battle, I just wing it. You know what I mean? It's like they have complex rules for like exploration activities and stuff. And if I'm just like, whatever, just give me a die roll. I'm going to adjudicate. We're going to make this simple. So I ignore a good portion of the rules just to speed the game up, you know. But anyway, that's one of the things I like is the faster combat, you know. And then one of the things that appeals to me about things like Shadow Dark or other OSR type games like that is just my understanding is combat's a lot faster, you know. So
well, I've play tested all of it, and the one that really had me interested was at the time the MCDM playtest, but Draw Steel it is now.
Oh, it's called Draw Steel now?
Yeah.
That's the one that Colville and his crew are developing, right?
That's right. That's right. And I'm playtesting it again here in a week. And I found combat moved pretty quickly with that one. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. When do you know? Now they already kickstarted that, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they didn't do a Kickstarter, but they did a fundraiser, and raised about $5 million.
So wait a second, but was it on Kickstarter?
No, it was on a different.
Oh, it was on BackerKit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so they did their fundraising project already for it.
Yeah.
When are they? Right. When's their release, or when are they planning on having it done? Do you know?
The last I heard, which was actually very recent, their goal is to have it books you can buy next Gen Con.
Next Gen Con. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. I'll have to get those. Put it on my shelf. I bought the Call of Cthulhu starter set at Gen Con this year, and I keep on collecting more stuff on my shelf that I'm gonna. I mean, I'm like.
I have boxes now in storage that are just full of books. Because you know, you can see the sag.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Oh, baby, I see it.
Yeah. There's nowhere for stuff to go anymore. So it goes in boxes in storage.
I have this hefty IKEA crap back there that doesn't sag much at all, but those things are monsters. But yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I'm playing PF2 right now, and we're level 6, and I have this thing where I always want to go to max level. You know, like I've done it for all of my 5th edition games, except for one where we all agreed to stop at 17 because we wanted to go do Curse of Strahd. And then obviously Curse of Strahd ended around 12 or 13 because that's just the module, right? But I have this thing where I want to go to the highest level, you know, and I've done it for 2 other 5th edition games, and for PF2, I really want to go to 20th level, just to experience it. But I keep getting more game systems, and I'm just like, I want to run Call of Cthulhu, and I want to run a Shadow Dark, and it's like, man, either I have to make more gaming groups, or we're gonna have to stop playing PF2 for a little bit or something. I don't know.
There's been it's almost unfortunate the way that all these game systems that are kind of D&D themed all have kind of came out at the same time, and I assume we can thank OGL for this.
I think so.
But just so many at the same time, it's very difficult to keep up on them all.
Yeah.
And then you want to play test one, and we got a revision to the play test, got to read through this 150-page PDF again to play this one time. It's if it was like one system coming out at a time, it'd be so much easier to keep on top of everything.
Yeah, I think the OGL is mostly to blame or give thanks to, however you want to look at it. But I imagine that most of the people who pulled the trigger on making new game systems had already been thinking about it for a while. Like, I know my friend Alan from Dungeon Coach, who did the DC-21, he'd been thinking about his own system for the longest time. And he was actually telling me that he had, like, he was working on his game system a long time ago, and he'd like make changes to what he was planning so that he could publish it for 5th edition and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what happened for other people, like even if you look at like Critical Role, and MCDM and folks like that, I suspect, and just totally speculation here, that they had been like noodling over the idea of their own game system for a while. And the OGL was the thing where they said, screw this crap, we're doing it, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
It was like the trigger.
Again, if these systems weren't all coming out at the same time, it'd be a lot if it was one and then it's out and here's another one and now it's out, it'd be so much easier to keep track of all the updates and the play tests. But I'm finding it quite hard to do that right now. But I'm trying to play test these things as they come out because I want to keep myself informed.
I am hopeless. I have no choice. I'd have to stop publishing crap to have time to do all these things, which is on like a wish list, just to play all these games and stuff. So we talked about the biggest thing for you, then it sounds like, is just the new classes, the new things to do, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things you think. Now, as far as like one of your first videos you released on your channel when you were talking about this stuff was going over like high level rules changes, not to classes and feats and stuff, but just in general. And in that video, that first one you released, if I remember correctly, there weren't any major overhauls to like core game mechanics, right? Like everything, the core mechanics seem to be pretty much the same, correct?
Yeah, if anything, they're reduced because there's less of the book devoted to those kinds of rules. And a lot of them are just gone, or at least gone from the player's handbook.
Any examples? What's gone?
Passive perception checks, skill contests, fast travel rules. That's what's there's far more than that.
Yeah,
and a lot of stuff has also been condensed. So it's still there, but there's less to it.
The book is bigger, but they condensed part of it. So that means they probably
they condensed a lot of it.
So there's more player options in the book, I imagine, right?
What's that?
So if they condense some of the core rules, but the book is longer than the original, that means there must be more player options and stuff?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So it's
yeah. And so it's not clear yet because Dungeon Master's Guide doesn't come out until November.
Right.
Whether these things are just changing homes,
right?
Or whether they're gone. Yeah. I like passive perception checks, for example, used to be in the player's handbook. It's not anymore, but it does tell you to calculate your passive perception. So, obviously, there's going to be something for it. So it's got to be showing up in the Dungeon Master's Guide instead, right?
And honestly, two of those things you mentioned are things that I hate. I hate passive perception. I hate the idea that there can be, and there are builds that exist that literally just have a plus 20 perception. They can literally just walk around and auto find traps and secret doors and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. There's just something about that. It's like, I want you to engage with the game. I want you to say, I'm searching for a trap or I'm looking for a secret door. I just want you to be engaged and not just kind of like autopilot around. So there's something about that as a game master where it's like I'm not into gotchas, you know, like I don't want to like get you with a trap or something. I'd much rather you look for it, find it, investigate it, figure out how to bypass it or solve it, because that's an interesting part of the game, you know. I don't want to just have you roll dice.
It's also fun to stick your players in a trap once in a while.
Sure, I agree. And then what was the other one you mentioned? So it's passive perception, and then contest, the skill contest.
Yeah.
So that's just it's slower when you have to roll skill contest. If you can have a flat DC that somebody rolls against, it's just faster. And I hate skill contests too for two other reasons. First of all, it's swingy. My dice sometimes fail me, you know. And the second thing is that most of the monsters in the monster manual from 2014, the monsters don't have any abilities, like their ability scores aren't that good, and they don't have a lot of like skills. So it's just like if you're level 10 or especially above, PC is doing a skill contest against any one of my monsters. It could be a level 25 monster, I don't care. You're probably gonna win because I don't have any skills. It's just like it feels like this massive oversight in these monsters, you know.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you some skill contests are definitely gone.
Okay.
Like if you want to hide, it's just a set DC now. I think it's at 15.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And if you want to grapple somebody, that's not a contest anymore. They make a saving throw. If you want to shove somebody, that's not a contest anymore. They make a saving throw.
Okay.
So there are cases that used to be contests that just aren't. So it's really unclear whether contests are going to be in the Dungeon Master's Guide or not. They could be, but there's nothing in the player's handbook to indicate that they will be.
We'll find out. So that kind of brings us to another thing I'm curious about is like this backwards compatibility idea. So if none of the core rules have changed, then we can say that in essence we have backwards compatibility, right? Like, would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah. I mean, there's no overhauls to rules. There's changes to some rules, and nothing that is going to mean that this old book I have can't be used anymore.
Right. What would happen? So you've deep dived into these new player options and stuff like that. So what would happen if I'm a game master, let's say that I'm doing a homebrew campaign, but like 3 of my players are from the old edition, you know, and 3 of them are from the new edition. Am I going to see any weird stuff happening? Am I going to need to be concerned about balance or something if I have players from one book and other players from the new one?
Okay, so so here's the straight talk on that. Jeremy Crawford has talked about how you could play with a 2014 fighter and a 2024 fighter at the same table, and it won't be a problem. And he's not lying. That's true.
But sounds like it's technically true.
Yeah, it is true.
Okay.
But there are going to be some things you need to discuss or think about. And the first is, like, let's say I'm playing a 2014 Druid, and I cast Conjure Animals. Am I going to cast the 2014 version of Conjure Animals?
Right.
Or the 2024 version of Conjure Animals? And if I am casting the 2014 version of Conjure Animals, what about the other person who's playing a Druid with the 2024 rules? Are they using the 2024 Conjure Animals?
Right.
And so are we going to have to say, okay, casting Conjure Animals, which Conjure Animals, right? Like stuff like that would be a pain in the neck. Though you could do it. There's no reason the old Conjure Animals couldn't still be used.
Yeah.
But obviously there's some terminology stuff. There's going to be some confusing stuff. Another issue potentially I would consider is if I am going to be looking at a 2014 fighter and a 2024 fighter, I am seeing very different power levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
The new fighter scales much better than the old fighters. Just basically been improved across the board, basically.
So there's no reason to play the old fighter then, it sounds like.
The only reason I could see to play the old fighter is there are some feats. The obvious examples are Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master that used to give a -5 +10 mechanic, and they don't anymore. So if you wanted to build around those, you would have to play a 2014 character, assuming we're still using those old feats for those characters, right? And I really think that if you are a DM and you are moving into the new rules,
right?
Personally, I would say if you want to play a subclass from 2014 on your new character, right? You want to make a cleric, great. You like the order domain, great. You can use the order domain, and the new player's handbook will walk you through how to do it, and it'll be fine.
Okay.
But if you want to say, I have a 2014 character, and I just want to take that character sheet and make no adjustments and play at your 2024 table, it will work, but it will be a pain in the butt.
Okay, so if I have a 2014 character, but I'm playing in a group that's running the 2024 rules, it's going to be a pain in the butt. And
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so because everything on your character sheet, might have changed.
Right.
And then we have to worry about which version we're talking about. So I have this feat. Well, which version of that feat do you have? And which version of that spell do you have? And because they're named the same thing.
It's going to turn into a hot, sloppy mess, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it's at least a level of inconvenience that you normally wouldn't have.
Right.
You can make it work. You can make it work. You just say, okay, I'm doing 2014 Conjure Animals, right? And okay, fine, and it would work. I just figure, do you really need to do that when you could just have the people make 2024 characters, right? Like, I think if you really want to access backwards compatibility, the easier way is to say, go ahead and make your 2024 fighter, and you want to use this subclass that was, in a different. You want to use the Rune Knight. Yeah. Great. Use the Rune Knight, and it'll be fine. It shouldn't have any issues at all. But
that just opens up cans of worms for me mentally, because, well, first of all, before I go into that, it seems like a game master is going to have to be very, very clear about, okay, look it, we're using only 2024 or not. Or you can use 2014, but if you do, everything you use is from 2014. Or you can say, look it, mix and match however you want. You know what I mean? Because
I think any table that is going to pick up the 2024 Player's Handbook and decide to use it needs to have a conversation with their table,
right,
to discuss what they're going to keep from old sources and what they're not going to keep. I think that's got to be universal, and a lot of tables are going to come up with different answers, which is fine. Whatever, as long as you and your friends know what you're doing, you'll be fine, because it is compatible. But that doesn't mean you necessarily want everything in the, like, I am glad to see the end of the old Conjure Animals. I found it a pain in the neck, so I loved that they redesigned it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want somebody bringing over a 2014 Druid and doing the old Conjure Animals and have to, we just got rid of that stupid thing. So, but if you and your table like it, then maybe it's fine for you. So yeah, I think every table is going to have that conversation, see what everyone wants to do, and come with a consensus and move forward from there. But that's got to happen. It's going to be like the new session 0.
Yeah, because I can see, like, players, if they're allowed to just mix and match, like, you have a whole new game of min-maxing power gaming, of like, all right, I'm going to be a cleric, I'm going to pick these things from 2024, these things from 2014, and this feat, this older feat here lets me do this, and you could just, it's a whole new world of, like, so, like, Colby would love that sort of thing, because he's the build guy, right?
Yeah, in terms of that, Jeremy Crawford has said, he was, I forget which YouTuber, he did an interview with a YouTuber anyway. Yeah. And he said, I think it was Pack Tactics. He said, this is how it works. If we have reprinted something, that's what the version you should use. So yeah, yes, you can play a 2014 fighter and it will work. But if you're making a new character, you should be making the 2024 fighter, and you're selecting feats that either are in the 2024 Player's Handbook or are from an old source book that have not been reprinted in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Right. So you can't go and take the old version of Sharpshooter anymore. Right. It's not available. Correct. Right.
That makes sense.
And same with spells, and same with all that. Yep. And I think if you do it that way, if that's the way you want if you want to keep using all your old source books,
Yeah.
the way he suggested seems like it would work reasonably well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I agree that that is the cleanest way to do it. And from a dungeon master's point of view, it is the best way to do it that minimizes the arguments you might get from players who are like, well, okay, just let me use this one here and that one here. It's like if you have a very clean rule that says what we just said, then there's no quibbling about it, you know what I mean? And you don't have to say, well, okay, you're doing this, but this combination is just broken because whatever. But it's basically what like Pathfinder 2 did with the remastered. Like the champion has not come out in the remastered rules yet, so you use the old version of it, but once it gets published, then you'd be expected, if you're playing remastered rules, to use the new version, and so I think that totally makes sense. And it seems like to me that for a game master who just wants to make it as clean as possible and have the easiest life possible, if you were to just say, look, we're either playing 2024 or we're playing 2014, that's it, you have the easiest life. Because once you have mix and matching, things just get a little messy, it sounds like,
Yeah, I mean, there will be stuff in the 2014 Player's Handbook that wasn't reprinted. So
right.
The example I think that Jeremy Crawford used was, you want to play a 2024 cleric, but you like the Tempest domain. Well, the Tempest domain isn't in the new book. So, but the rules are there. Like if you just follow the text under the 2024 cleric, you can use the Tempest domain from the 2014 book, and it's fine, and it is fine. So I think that won't cause you issues. But if you're saying, I want to play the new version of the cleric, but I want to use this old life domain because I like how it interacted with Goodberry, and this new one doesn't work anymore, that's where you can have issues.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think is the biggest downgrade for the 2024, if you're thinking of things that you don't like or that are worse?
Okay, I don't know that. So my biggest complaint about the 2024 Player's Handbook are things they didn't change.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of, when I look at spell balance, that'd be one of the top things.
Yep.
Is the 2014 Player's Handbook is the worst for spell balance. Because they did more spells in other books, and a lot of complaints about Strixhaven and Silvery Barbs, whatever.
Yeah.
Read your 2014 Player's Handbook. That is the most unbalanced spells that we've had in this entire edition.
Do you have some examples, like put this in context?
Force Cage.
Oh yeah, no save whatsoever. You sit the game out for 1 hour. Yay.
Yep. Simulacrum, Magic Jar, Contingency, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Right. The list goes on and on and on. And there are spells that have been addressed in the new Player's Handbook, but spells that haven't been addressed, and new spells that still aren't balanced as well. So
okay, so let me just butt in here. Sorry, but when I was listening to your videos, if I remember correctly, you made 3 different videos on spells, and you touched on ones that were changed and made better, and then one of them at least was talking about spells that's like, how did you not change this? It's so broken or bad, and you didn't do anything. And when I was listening to that, I just couldn't help but think, like, they had a fixed timeline to do this, so they didn't have enough time to actually give everything a fair shake. But they also laid off a whole bunch of people, so they had a fixed timeline that got even worse because they had to deal with the OGL stuff for a while, and that put a big damper. Like, they lost months of progress probably dealing with that. And then they had the layoffs, and the timeline probably got pushed out to the end of this year and into next year because of OGL and stuff like that, I would imagine. You know what I mean? So I can't help but feel that part of the reason some of these things didn't get a good treatment isn't because they probably didn't want to. The game designers are smart people. They probably know what they're doing. So they probably had some of these things identified. But when you have a fixed scope, you can't have a fixed scope, fixed timeline, and then fixed quality. Like, something's got to give, and it seems like they were just like, you know what? These things right here, we just don't have the time to fix, so we're just gonna ship it,
Yeah.
So
So I don't know what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I can't. We can speculate, but we don't know.
Right.
But there are certainly signs I see that things were rushed. There for sure. I can think of an example right away. There's a new spell called Conjure Woodland Beings, or at least it's a redesigned spell to the point where it's a new spell.
Okay.
And in the they were releasing playtests like every month or two.
Yeah.
Right. That playtest packets that had a bunch of new stuff in them. And there was one with spells, and it had Conjure Woodland Beings in it. And Conjure Woodland Beings in the old Player's Handbook is a 4th level spell. Then in the playtest, they released this new redesign of Conjure Woodland Beings, and they accidentally, I assume, made it 5th level.
Okay.
They asked for surveys, so we dutifully responded in the surveys. Is this supposed to be 5th level? Because it's supposed, it was 4th level in the old Player's Handbook. So in the new Player's Handbook, Conjure Woodland Beings is now 4th level. But they have changed nothing. There was one little tiny change, but no, there was nothing changed for Conjure Woodland Beings. And to the point where under casting spell with a higher level, they say if you cast a spell at a level higher than 5th level, like they missed that it's higher, it's 4th level now.
Yeah.
And that suggests to me rush, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
get that on the page and okay, it's 4th level, bam, right?
I'm no, like, some of the things Wizard Coast has done, I can't, I'm not like a fanboy by any means, okay? But as someone who publishes books, I totally can understand how something like that gets missed. You know what I mean? So that doesn't surprise me. Does it mean it's rushed or not? It could, or it could have just been something that slips through. I mean, that crap happens. It's so easy, but
you assume that Wizards of the Coast has, like, this was a 2-year project with a team working on it. You have Jeremy Crawford going on interviews saying we're going line by line, taking our time.
That's PR crap.
Making sure.
That's marketing crap. Yeah.
And no, you weren't, because you would have hit that line and gone, this isn't a 5th level spell anymore.
No. When company spokespeople appear on streams and videos and stuff, that's marketing and that's PR. That's what that is. That's all that is. So, I mean, the other thing too, though, is that, like, when I look at the list of credits that makes these books, like, they have 100 people working on these books. When you have
mostly with this one, it looks like there's like 100 people who are artists, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Now, the thing though is that, so when we publish books, we have a very small team. It's like me and one other full-time person, and then some contractors, and it's just a handful of contractors. It's not that much. And what I've noticed is, and this is just true in general. I used to do kind of project manager stuff, and I do it now, actually, literally. Like, the more lines of communication, the more hands are in the cookie jar. The complexity of a project just bloats exponentially. You know what I mean? So when you have that many people in their cookie jar, rooting around and doing stuff, you know what I mean? The complexity of a project just gets crazy. You know what I mean? So when you have that many people working on a book, I don't think you need that many people working on a book to get a book done. Okay, it seems like whatever, but that's whatever, something else. So, but I totally can understand how, even though you have 2 years to do it and you have that many people, that you still end up with, like what you're saying, something that feels rushed. You know what I mean? That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Though there are parts of the book where I don't get that sense. Right. Like, if I'm reading through the classes and subclasses, it looks like they took their time. Right. I don't agree with every decision they made, but it looks like it was a thoughtful process. But a lot of the spells, it looks like it was like, let's just get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
That was probably, you have your priorities and you have the things that aren't priorities, and you hit the most important stuff, and then, and they knew they had to redo the classes and probably feats and different things like that. So at that point,
we're
a lot
like, with that stuff,
and there's so many spells. At some point, it's like, look, we can't do it
almost
all.
400.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the crappy thing is, and what's really bad about that is that when I think of all of the high-level games that I've run for D&D, I've been up to level 20 in 2 groups and up to level 17 in another one. When I think of all these games, the things that break the game most and make the game almost unplayable, or as from a game master at least, make it not that fun to play the game, are spells. It's some of these spells and some of these combinations. So it's like, when you say they didn't take their time and fix some of the broken spells, that makes my heart sink a little bit, because I know as a game master, broken, overpowered spells are one of the things that frustrated me the most and made me least want to play high-level D&D, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I got this player's hand or a PDF version of it in early June, and you know, I was under an NDA until August 1st, so I couldn't really give any specifics about it. I was allowed to tell people that I had it, and give general, you know, impressions, and so I was asked about it, and I had to say, you know, what do I feel about it? Mixed, right? Because the spells, not, you know, I definitely was not completely satisfied with where they ended up with spells. Some of them I am, but there was a lot that I felt really needed addressed.
Yeah,
that just didn't get addressed.
I felt that in your video when I was watching it. I was like, he's not happy with these guys. And you were mentioning some of these spells too that didn't get touched. What are some of the spells you think that most needed attention that got ignored?
Well, I think the ones that needed the most attention are lower level spells.
Okay.
Like, we can talk about Force Cage, but that doesn't affect. Like, we were talking about playing high level, and then you get frustrated because, you know, round one, combat over. Okay, right, and that sucks. But at least you can play lower level, and it doesn't cause a problem. But spells like Web are way overpowered for their level.
Right.
And they actually arguably made Web stronger, not weaker. Because now it used to at least be if you knock somebody into Web, they didn't make a saving throw until the start of their turn. Now they make it right away, and again at the start of their turn, and they only have to fail once to get trapped.
Yeah.
So they made this spell that was overpowered even more powerful. Arguably, it's easier to escape potentially if you are proficient in athletics, but you know, that's a problem, right? Like, because that's a second level spell.
Yeah.
So your third level characters, that's where a lot of campaigns start.
Right.
And you have this spell that's so much more powerful than the other options at that level. That's no good, because it means that if you're playing a character that can get Web, you kind of have to get Web. You kind of have to cast Web. And we're tired of it being on. I like the Web spell. I don't like it on every character, right?
Yeah.
Now, I play with people who are filthy optimizers. We're all filthy min-maxers.
Oh yeah.
So you know, if I played with proper non-min-maxing folks, then I'm sure they would be taking, you know, other second level spells, Gust of Wind or whatever. But you know, the people I play with are taking Web, and I'm taking Web because we feel like we have to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm playing Pathfinder 2 right now. If my players don't optimize, they're gonna die. So I can, now that's not true for 5th edition, right? But I can appreciate that, and I like to do that too. So when I remember one of the feelings, the thoughts I had when I was listening, at least to your video about the spells and not updating them, is my initial reaction was like, I don't want to play the new edition if we still have these glaring errors or things have been made worse in some cases. You know, so I mean, that's just one part of the game, but I can't. I had that thought. You know,
I mean, if I was to look at spells overall in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and somebody asked me, you know, is the spell balance better or worse than 2014? It's better.
It's better. Okay. So they changed enough of the stuff to make it better than it was before.
Better than it was before, but just not enough better.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was a lot better it could have been.
It's not 50th anniversary of D&D celebration better.
Yeah, no, they should have gone here,
right?
And they got to here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And left a lot of gap that I thought was pretty important.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, you know, that they couldn't deliver there, you know, like, because, I mean, forgetting some of my feelings about Wizard of the Coast as a company, you know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people love playing D&D, so you want them to have, like, the best experience, you know, and so some of
I love playing D&D.
Yeah.
And I want it to be the best game it can be.
Yeah.
And I don't care about as much about where it comes from as my experience and my friends' experience were the people that matter to me, right?
Right. Yeah. And if it had been improved significantly, that would have just been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited
Yeah.
to. I just played my first game using
Yeah.
the new rules last night.
Okay.
And it was fun. We
Player
had
or
a great
game
time.
master?
And we're player.
Okay.
And we're super excited to get into the new rules. So, and I'm super excited to talk about them. There are lots of exciting things, but it could have been better.
Mhm.
Could have been better, I think. With
Yeah.
a little bit more attention to particularly spells.
All right, let's talk power creep. Do you feel that overall, like one of the things that I think I've noticed to a certain extent, other people have complained about, is generally as splat books get released, you see this power creep. And the argument is that if there's power creep, it incentivizes people to buy the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
that's why they do it.
Exactly. So for 2024 Player's Handbook, do you see power creep?
Yeah. And I think it would have been a shock to not see power creep.
Right.
And the 2024 Player's Handbook would be a guaranteed failure if there hadn't been power creep for exactly the reason you say.
Right.
The power creep happens in everything, everything. And of course it's going to happen here. You would be a fool to think it wasn't going to be there. And of course it's there. It's there. You're even the stuff that they're complaining about. Like a lot of people are complaining because paladins now have to use a bonus action to divine smite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they get extra channel divinities and they scale with level. And they get weapon masteries. They're getting if you look at what they got versus that little nerf,
right?
They're still more powerful.
They are,
right?
Paladins were like in my opinion, one of the most powerful classes, at least as a game master. When I had literally, if I were running a game with a paladin in it, I literally would have to redesign encounters to account for that increased power. Otherwise, it would be a cakewalk,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always figured that the biggest power level of the paladin and the one that maybe should have been addressed was aura of protection, which gives everyone their +5 to their saving throws. Because as a DM, I find that this ability that was supposed to, the Mind Flayer was supposed to take out half the party. Now nobody.
You want to, and this isn't a game with bounded accuracy, so a +5 is huge. Now,
to the point where if you're playing with optimizers, they don't increase the strength on their paladins, they increase their charisma.
Yeah.
Right. Now, because it's all aura protection is more powerful than smite. Easy.
So my dirty DM secret is that when I'm at high level D&D especially, and I have a paladin that can do that, the DCs of everything go up by about 4 or 5. And I'm not going to tell my player you can't have the +5 because they're going to feel like it's a nerf. But if I don't do that, the game doesn't work. Then everything is, none of the spells land, none of the abilities land. It's just a cakewalk. And frankly, you can say, well, you're invalidating the player's choices and stuff. And it's like, yes, that's true. But if I don't do that, the whole game is boring for everyone. So it's like, what do you want me to do as a game master? And my hands are tied,
Yeah. No, I totally understand. Because if that Mind Flayer hits and half the people are suddenly stunned,
right?
Excitement, right? Oh my God, we're in trouble,
right?
If he does it and nothing happens,
Mind Flayer's dead.
Then your combat is over, right? And it's not going to be fun for anybody because it'll be an easy.
I in my Pathfinder 2 game right now, they're playing an adventure with Mind Flayers in it, and I had to homebrew the Mind Flayers because they don't exist in Pathfinder 2, and I undertuned them so they're not strong enough. And my players are just pouncing, destroying them too easily. And so now, before our next game session, I need to go back and make sure that these Mind Flayers can actually do something. Otherwise, it's just going to be boring, crunching, destroying them, So, but yeah, you want it, your monsters have to present some sort of challenge for things to be exciting. Otherwise, it's just kind of, boring, So.
Yeah. Now, I should mention, since we're talking about power creep, to give it a little bit more nuance, generally, it was accepted that the wizard was the most powerful class in Dungeons and Dragons, at least certainly once you got to a certain level.
Right.
And Wizards got the least amount of power creep.
Cool.
The classes that got lots of power creep are the barbarians and the fighters, and the bard got a lot.
Okay. Well, the bard sucked, so that's good.
Yeah. Generally agreed upon. Weaker classes got more power.
Even the ranger.
Oh yeah. I
Did
did.
it? Okay.
Anyone who says that the ranger got a downgrade, I don't know what is wrong with them. Giving you free Hunter's Mark does not make you worse.
Giving you what?
Right?
Giving you what?
The big complaint about the ranger is that they got free castings of Hunter's Mark.
Okay.
So this thing that you used to have to select and expand,
right?
You now get it for free.
What is it? Certain number of times per rest or something?
Certain number of times per rest.
Okay.
And people, that's not a downgrade. That's not a power downgrade.
That's not a downgrade at all.
That's an upgrade.
Yeah.
Now, I get it if you think Hunter's Mark sucks and you don't want to use it on your ranger, but at worst, it's nothing then, because you can just simply not use it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's at worst.
It's
Plus,
free
they gave
damage.
the ranger.
Gosh.
They gave the ranger weapon mastery. They improved the subclasses.
Okay.
So there are a number of things that the ranger got in addition to free Hunter's Mark, and honestly. I don't see the big issue with Hunter's Mark.
Okay.
I get the frustration with bonus action interactions with old things like the old crossbow expert feat.
Yeah.
But with the new Nick weapon mastery, it's not an issue anymore.
Okay.
And Ranger is what I played last night, and it was and I did great single target damage, which is what you would expect a Ranger to do.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I feel a little bad now because I heard from somebody somewhere that Rangers still sucked, and so I made a short kind of mocking that. You know what I mean? Now I feel a little guilty.
Well, this is all my opinion, right? And lots of people disagree with me. But I see that the Rangers and the Paladins did not get as big a slice of the pie as the fighters and the barbarians and the monks.
Well, that's good. I think that's good though, because
I think that's good too, because people don't appreciate how good spells are.
Yeah, the marshals kind of didn't have enough love, and spellcasters were just like way strong, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually makes me happy to hear that. So.
Oh yeah, no, overall, I'm not super happy about where spell balance ended up, but in terms of classes and subclasses, overall, I was overjoyed. I thought they did a fantastic job.
Cool. That's awesome to hear. Because I don't know. There's just there's so much pessimism in here from some of the stuff that we've gone through over the last 2 years that it's like, what's it going to be like? Is it really going to be good, or is it just going to be some more of this crap on a platter we've been served up with some of the stuff that's happened? And it makes me happy to hear that there's some really good stuff going on, Yeah.
Well, and remember too, sometimes Wizards of the Coast does shitty things, but that's not necessarily the design team of D&D doing those shitty things.
Right.
I think they're generally these are good people who are good at their jobs, right? And working hard, putting out product, and hoping we will like it.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think there is a tendency in the online community. I don't know if this happens in people's basements when they open the book and they're not watching people like you and I.
Yeah.
But I think there's a tendency in the online community to look for what's wrong and focus on that and focus on the negative because it gets attention.
That's exactly right. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And so I think things often are painted in a light that I don't think is accurate.
No.
And like the 2024 Player's Handbook, overall, I think it's a good book that I am going to be using and I'm excited to switch to. And I've already talked about some things that I'm not happy about because it was inevitable. I was not going to like everything.
Of course.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, I like it.
Awesome. So I have another question about power creep and using things like old modules and stuff. But we did have a super chat I want to hit on. D20 Play, thank you, good sir or ma'am, for the super
Tom.
chat. Was that Tom? You know this dude?
I know. Yes, I do.
Cool. So he says, love the positive attitude. The question is, how was weapon mastery in your game? Did you keep it flowing fast?
Yes.
What is weapon mastery? Because I'm not familiar with
so
this.
I should first specify that in the game I played last night, I was the only character with weapon mastery, and I had Vex and I had Nick, and I was a 2-weapon fighter. So those are 2 weapon masteries that are super easy to use, and super quick to use, and they were no issue at all, and fun because they allowed me to use my Hunter's Mark effectively. In general, when I was playtesting with the playtesting rules, because I playtested a lot, the only weapon mastery we sometimes had an issue with was topple.
Okay.
So topple is a weapon mastery that's not on a lot of weapons, but what it does is if you hit somebody and you have the mastery, you can potentially knock them prone, but they get a saving throw.
Okay.
And that's on every attack. And sometimes characters make a lot of attacks, and that's a lot of saving throws.
Right.
Especially if they fail the first one, then it's no problem because the rest doesn't matter, right? But because you're either prone or you're not. But if they're making their saving throw, then they got to make it again and again and again, and it does slow things down a bit.
Yeah, but at least they get a saving throw.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of the things from the 2014 that annoyed me on the Warlock was that special thing they could add to their Eldritch Blast that allowed them to push people back 10 feet with no saving
blast.
throw.
Yeah.
Oh my,
Yeah.
I hated that. I house ruled it to where enemies got to make a saving throw or something because it was just, I use terrain a lot and elevation and hazards like chasms. And when you're doing that and you have a Warlock that can push 3 times around, they're pushing someone back 10 feet, no saving throw. It's like you have a crazy change in battle dynamics. It's, you know what I mean?
So I should tell you that there are a ton of ways to move around enemies in the new rules.
Okay.
The one thing they've done to that feature that you referred to, repelling blast, is they have limited the size. So it works on anything large or smaller. So if you have huge creatures or gargantuan creatures, it's not going to work on them anymore at all. There's no say. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with a lot of the push. There's a push mastery with the weapons that allows you to push, and it too has a large size or smaller.
Okay, cool.
Limit on it. So when you have those big monsters,
Yeah.
they're not getting pushed around like ragdolls anymore.
Cool.
It's good.
Yeah. I don't think I ever ran into that particular problem, but I would just have like, people getting pushed off ledges and like, what? And then here's the next one. Goodbye. Here's the next one. Goodbye. It's like, what?
Well, that could still happen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. It's just like my poor monsters.
There is nothing so satisfying as pushing an enemy off a ledge.
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry.
I know.
That one has never gotten old.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and then they don't die because it caps out at 20d6, and then they just get up and climb up or something, or you get them later. But so we talked about power creep. Everything is more powerful. So if I want to run Curse of Strahd using the 2024 rules, like I think we can probably safely say that if I do it with no adjustments, it's going to be a curb stomp. Is that an accurate assessment?
All right. So once again, I have to take the mask off and talk about being an optimizer because for me, using the 2014 rules, it was a curb stomp. And super easy.
What, did you guys literally do Curse of Strahd with 2024?
Not with 2020, but I've done it with 2014.
Oh, okay.
And
gotcha.
And I found it to be an absolute cakewalk.
Yeah.
And when I ran it, I had to up it significantly to challenge my players.
Right.
And even then, it was barely enough. And I did a lot to make it tougher.
Oh, dude, let me.
I doubled the numbers of creatures and stuff like that.
I ran Curse of Strahd a couple of years ago, almost at this point, for my group, my home group that plays here, and 2014 obviously rules. And I beefed stuff like nobody's business.
Yeah.
For the final fight with Strahd, like I essentially nerfed all the artifacts so they didn't work unless they did certain things. There was this fog cloud around Strahd. They couldn't see him to target with spells. He was immune to spells 3rd level and lower. Like he had an anti-magic field up. They had to break his concentration first. He had Warcaster or whatever, so he had advantage in concentration spells. I had waves of enemies. I had the Archangel that was corrupted or whatever, and then the Flesh Golem had become his minion. And they were fighting as part of the waves. It was like I did everything I could,
and I bet the players still won.
Yeah, and I don't think the battle was a bad climatic battle, but it certainly wasn't what I would say a great one for a module like Curse of Strahd. And I beefed the living daylight out of everything. Now, to be fair, my players were level 12, so I had to do that, right, instead of 10, but still it was nuts. So if you take 2024 characters, which are out of the box more powerful than 2014,
you're gonna have to jump it up even more.
right?
Yes, but
Dang.
like I said, I think you have to jump it up already
Yeah.
because they really make these adventures for groups that are inexperienced. They want you to be able to play with new players and not destroy them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as experienced players, we learn tactics. We learn to work together. We learn what spells are good and which ones aren't so good.
Right. Right.
And so it makes these published adventures pretty easy, unless as a DM we do things to make them more challenging. And we do. I think we do that already.
Yeah.
And so I think you could totally still play an old adventure. You're just gonna have to what you were doing already, but a little bit more.
Right.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
So like, if that's true, and they're making these for newer groups and stuff, then it feels like, why isn't there some sort of like game master note box in every single one of these modules that says, hey, this is how it's designed. If you're an advanced group with advanced players, beef things up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, fair warning. It seems like we should get that.
I would,
you know,
I would
it's
sign
like,
on to that, especially if it gave you some ideas. Right?
Yes.
It said, here's this
Right.
encounter. Here's how you set it to medium difficulty.
Yeah.
Here's how you set it to hard difficulty. Here's how you set it for filthy optimizers. Right.
Now,
Yeah.
so I don't think if they were to do that for every single encounter, page count would get crazy, right? So,
Maybe so.
but if they were to dedicate a spread, let's say, to how you would scale up your game to different player strengths or player experience, a spread dedicated to that at least gave me some ideas, that would be awesome. You know,
Yeah.
and then I could go through and implement those, and they might pick out certain battles, like, hey, for the boss fight, you know, or what they might do is throughout the book for key moments have little call outs that says, to increase the difficulty of this, you can do this, this, and this. You know, that would be super useful, especially for boss fights and stuff, you know. So yeah, and do you think that most published modules for 2014 D&D are going to find themselves in that spot where game masters are just going to have to ramp the difficulty a whole bunch?
I think all the modules that are published from Wizards of the Coast that I have had experience with, either running or playing, already needed that.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be even more so now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speculation time. One of the biggest complaints that dungeon masters tend to have, at least I know it's one of mine, for 2014 games, is that the encounter balancing math and mechanism is wonky. Like, especially, so if I'm building an encounter for a group and I'm trying to target like medium difficulty or hard or deadly, the encounter building math just doesn't work a lot of times, and especially at 8th level, 10th and above, it falls apart to pieces. So
Yeah, garbage.
I mean, we're really speculating because we won't know until the Dungeon Master Guide comes out. But what is your gut? Do you think that is going to get better or not?
I think it's going to get simpler.
Okay.
Right? Because right now what we have is an encounter building system that is not only doesn't work well,
Right.
but it also can be complicated, especially if you're adding multiple minions of different challenge ratings. There's just a lot of math to go through.
Sure.
I mean, it's not rocket science, but it takes time, and I think that will be easier. It's still not going to work, and here's why it's not going to work, because we were talking about mind flayers earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's say you are taking on a party of bards and druid, or not druids. They're actually proficient in intelligence saves. We've got to pick something else. Sorcerers and you know what I'm saying. Fighters.
Yeah.
They're screwed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Put a couple mind flayers who are going to mind blast on round one. They're done. You got TPK.
Yeah.
If you have a party and you got a paladin with a +5 charisma, and you got a wizard and a druid and a rogue, they're all proficient in intelligence, then they're going to walk through that encounter and wonder what the big deal was. And I see this all the time because I make adventures every month.
Yeah.
And I run them for 5 different groups, same adventure. And I just see so much difference in terms of the difficulty they have. Some walk through it, others have a tough time.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because Group B didn't optimize or they didn't plan their characters and spells well. It's that different monsters and different, if you're going to have monsters that aren't just bags of hit points and damage, then some groups are going to have tool sets to deal with certain problems that other groups aren't going to have so well.
Yes.
It's inevitable because parties are different from each other, and that's a good thing. That's a feature, not a bug. And monsters, if they do have special features, they're going to be better against some groups than other, and that's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
But the downside of that is that you cannot have a generic encounter building system that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, you know, I play Pathfinder 2 right now, and I'll tell you, their math is pretty tight.
Their math is pretty tight, but I would also say, and I've played Pathfinder 2 a number of times.
Yeah.
We played it together at one point.
Was this with what's his name? Yes, with the lawyer guy.
Yes, that's right.
Forgetting his name now, but yeah.
Oh my, I feel bad now. I
do too.
Can't think of his name offhand.
Dang it. I suck.
yeah, you should have brought it up. Anyway,
I know, now we both look like jerks.
That's me.
Yeah, I have a bad memory.
But I played Pathfinder last month at higher level. We were 16th or something like that.
Ronald the Rules Lawyer. There we go. Thank you, people in
Ronald.
chat. Yes, Ronald the Rules Lawyer.
Sorry, Ronald.
Yeah, sorry, Ronald.
Anyways, I find combat is very tactical in Pathfinder, very teamwork oriented, but there is less flexibility in what you can do than there is in Dungeons and Dragons. And that's the feature of Pathfinder 2. That's part of the reason people like it more, is because it doesn't have these wild, crazy interaction things that you can do.
Right.
But it's there, right? And
it makes it easier to anticipate the challenge of a certain combat because it's less swingy with less like these. Yeah, I gotcha.
That's right. And that and that style appeals to some players, and sometimes the D&D experience appeals to different players. Right. Because we all like different things in our games.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, I agree. The challenge system or the encounter building system in Pathfinder works pretty well, but it is a game that's designed for that kind of thing to work.
Right, well. And it's not based on bounded accuracy. Everything scales, and I feel like when you have that scaling and characters are gaining +1s every time they level up, and they're like, whether they're proficient or not in something, and what their ability score is important, but it isn't necessarily as important as it is in D&D. You know, I feel like it's easier to get that math to work out a little bit.
It is the power, what a character can do in Pathfinder is far more predictable, in my opinion. Though I'm not an expert at Pathfinder, I should say that right out at the bat. I've played it a few times, and I've read the book. Yeah. But there are people out there who are experts. I am not one of them.
I played it for a little over a year now, and I think that what you said is fairly accurate. Yeah. So, all right, sweet. So we talked about power creep and that stuff. Is there any of the changes from the 2024 that you think are a mistake? Like, what's something that they did that you're just like, oh no, we already talked about spells, so let's ignore that for now. But something else that you think is a big oversight or a mistake?
Big oversight or a mistake? I'm not sure I have an answer to that. Like I said, most of my concerns are things they didn't change, not things they did change. Okay. Generally speaking, the changes they made, like if we're talking about the bones of the rules, I think are at worst lateral, and in some cases an improvement. I'm thinking about, there's stuff that's debatable, right? Like shields, physical shield. You used to be able to equip a shield, it took an action. Yeah. Unequip a shield, it took an action. They have now removed that. It's now an interaction. And there's potentially clunky stuff that could be done with that. I was just talking to patrons today about, games I'll be running in the future. And I talked about, we probably don't want somebody using a two-handed sword and then at the end of their turn, they're going to hold it in one hand and draw a shield. And then at the beginning of their next turn, they use interaction, put it away, and then they're using the weapon again. And then at the end of that round, we got to keep track that they don't have their interaction anymore. They can't do it the second time in a row. That's horrible. We don't want to do that.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've already house ruled it. Right?
Yeah.
So there's little things like that. But on the other hand, I like the idea that you can use the sword and shield, and then you can switch to a longbow, and then switch back to sword and shield, depending on and you don't have those turns where you're doing nothing because you're trying to equip and unequip stuff. I like that. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff where it's okay. I kind of like it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I've had players that they don't like the idea of it taking an action to equip or unequip a shield, and they'll be like, all you gotta do is let go of the handle and you drop it or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I've done some like medieval like sword playing crap where
it depends what kind of. There's a million kinds of shields.
I mean, I used to use a heater shield, which basically it has a strap that goes here, and then there's a handle that you hold here. And like, if you want to get this thing off, you don't just let go. Like, if you don't have a free hand, you gotta like let go and then kind of shake it to get it off. And it's probably going to catch on my armor or on my gauntlet, or it's going to catch somewhere, this strap, and I'm just going to I have to sheath my sword or drop it to like pull this shield off my arm. So that is definitely an action, and it probably requires a free hand to do so. Now, if it were a lot of guys...
On the other hand, you got a boss shield.
Or a buckler.
And it's literally just a handle.
Exactly.
Right?
I had this guy who was kind of doing like a Viking fighting style, and he had this big circular boss shield that you just hold the handle. He could absolutely just throw this thing away if he wanted to. No problem. But at that point, and this is one of the arguments that, or a discussion, I should say, you get into with players, it's like, well, it's not realistic. Well, but you have to have game mechanics and rules that you can use, because if every argument is it's not realistic, then you end up with a game that's so complex because you're trying to simulate everything that you can't play it.
You cannot create a reality engine with a tabletop role-playing game.
No.
You just can't. You have to. And so the thing with shields, the way I'd come at it as a designer is what do we want the game to feel like when we play it? Do we want them to be, wait for their turn to come up in initiative and then be like, okay, well, gotta unequip my shield because we're at range now, so I guess I do nothing this turn.
Right.
Or do you want them to just shoot their damn bow?
I want them to shoot their bow. Like one of the very first house rules I made for Pathfinder 2 was that if you're shooting arrows, you can shoot 2 or 3 arrows or whatever per turn based on the number of actions you have. But if you want to throw a spear or a hand axe or a dagger, it's an action to get it out, another action to throw it. And then you could pull another one out, I guess, but you get to throw one of them a turn. Whereas, if you're shooting a bow, it's like 3 per turn. And so one of our very first house rules was, look, if you're throwing a spear or a dagger, you can draw it and throw it with one action. That's it, because man, it's punitive.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's silly about that, in my opinion, is let's say you have a bow. You're drawing arrows.
Exactly.
So what's the difference? You're drawing an arrow or you're drawing a weapon?
I would argue, like I don't shoot bows. I did when I was a kid, but not anymore. But I would argue that it is more complex to draw an arrow, knock it on that little string, and pull it back, aim, and shoot, than it is to grab a spear, right, and then throw it. That would be my argument, So
I'm not an expert, so
I'm not either.
I'm sure somebody watching is like an expert marksman and like I can just. But I don't care if you're grabbing something. You're grabbing something. The guy who's an expert at throwing javelins can do it fast too. Yeah.
Exactly. The guy who's practiced at it can do it too. Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree. 100% agree. You want to take a quick little couple-minute break, bio and stuff, and then come back?
Sure.
Good?
Yeah, sounds good.
So I'll play a video for everybody, and we'll be back shortly.
Are you a dungeon master? Do you want to be a dungeon master? Do you have blue face paint on your face? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you're just like me. Not only do you enjoy smashing players in the face with your axe every time they metagame, but you're also a busy person, and while prepping for a D&D game, well, sometimes that's hard. And as much as you'd like to force one of your players to run D&D for a change, well, they all suck, so it's pretty much up to you to be the forever dungeon master. And that's exactly why I get out my crayons every month and write a new issue of Lair magazine. Well, I mean, it's not just me, I have a team of people too. We all get out our crayons and write it, but yeah. Anyway, every issue of Lair magazine contains 5th edition Dungeon Master resources to help you reduce your prep time while still running amazing games for your lazy, good-for-nothing players. Every issue of Lair magazine contains 2 to 3 adventures complete with maps for online play. You know, we also sprinkle in other stuff like puzzles and traps, which, let's be honest, both suck to have to make yourself. So, I mean, wouldn't you rather just become a DM Lair patron and pay me to write them for you? I mean, you know, my team and I, with our crayons? Now, if you love your wonderful players as much as I do, consider helping me to meet my sales quota by becoming a DM Lair patron today at the link below. You'll get a new issue of Lair magazine every month and other cool stuff like map packs and bonus adventures. Okay, that's it. Please become a DM Lair patron now or I will find you.
I'm back, waiting for Chris to come. And then we'll begin again. Oh! A kitty strike? We could probably do a kitty strike really quick while we're waiting for Chris to come back. Let's see if I can get some cats to come down here. Oh yeah, I got some customers. All right, here we go. That's the wrong one. All right. I'm giving my cats some treats really quick.
Yeah, I was just upstairs visiting with my cats. One of them looks just like yours.
Oh yeah, this is Squirty Pie right here.
Yeah, I've got a cat named Maggie who looks just like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's throw this stuff.
I'm gonna make myself a coffee.
Okay. Well, go get it, you big baby.
Oh, you got a couple that look the same.
Oh yeah, we have most of them look the same. They're all.
Oh,
like
how many cats do you have?
7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got 2. The other one is gigantic orange furball.
Oh, nice. How much does he weigh?
He's 30 pounds.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he's like this, and he's fat too.
Oh my gosh. So he's obviously like a bigger, structured cat.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then he's also
you lift up his paw, and it looks like a lion's paw.
That's awesome. I love that crap. I've seen big cats before.
And he is
cool.
so like he just loves cuddles, right?
Oh yeah. Does he like his belly rubbed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
he's
awesome.
if you're sitting anywhere, he's jumping up and hopping on you.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's go back over here to our interview screen. Okay, so if folks have questions that you'd like me to ask Chris while we got him here, please throw them in the chat. You can super chat too. That'll get it right in front of our faces. But I'll try to grab stuff from chat. But frankly, I have a hard time reading chat and also talking. So I'll do the best I can. But it does look like. Okay, I thought I saw a question, but it's not a serious question, so I'm just gonna ignore that. Sorry. If Wizards of the Coast said to you, can you redesign anything in this book and we will publish it with your design, what would you redesign?
It would take me a while. I've heard of push this aside. There we go. Take me a while to figure out what it would be because there's a lot of things I would want to do.
Give me your top 5 or something.
Yeah. Well, then it's probably the first thing I'm doing is So there's rules for spell components. You got verbal, material, somatic components. And if you are holding a spell focus in your hand, then you can complete the somatic components of a spell as long as it has a material component. And if it doesn't have a material component, then you cannot complete the somatic components of a spell. That's been the case since 2014.
Hold on, say this again. I must have missed something.
All right, you're one of the majority of people who have no idea how spell components have ever worked in 5th edition.
Probably.
The material component in the rules,
right?
Under spellcasting rules, in the old player's handbook as well, says that if you need a free hand to access the material component of your spell.
Okay.
But if that hand, you can use the same hand to perform a somatic component of a spell.
Right. Okay.
But that's only if the spell has a material component. Otherwise, that doesn't apply. So if you are, say, holding your magic wand,
right,
and you want to cast your wizard spell, and that wizard spell does not have a material component, so it doesn't need that wand, you cannot use the somatic component, the same hand, to do your somatic component. But if a spell does have a material component, then you can use the same hand. And this has been the case for 10 years, and that look on your face is exactly the look on my face when I saw they didn't fix it.
I mean, you're telling me this, and I'm just like, this is why we don't pay attention to stuff like that.
Yeah. And I read it, and the look on my face is exactly like yours was 5 seconds ago. What?
Well, I mean, my look is like that because, I mean, I'm unaware of this, obviously, but also, like, if I knew it existed, and one of my players had a concern with it, and I actually knew about it, my response as the game master would just be like, I don't care. As long as you have a free hand and you can get your component, I don't give a flying crap. As long as you don't have like a shield and a sword and are trying to spellcast, then I don't care. You know.
Yep.
So and
if that sword happens to be a spell focus for you, you can cast all your spells.
Yes, you're fine. You're fine.
And that's, I think, as a DM, that's what I'm going to be doing as well. In fact, I've already told people I'm playing with that that's how I'll run it. Is I won't be the referee for does that spell have a material component or not. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And it would have been nice if it had been in the rules, though. If I don't have to say that, if it's just the player knows, because you're going to have that player who's a rules wonk, who sees it, and then they're going to self-police, right? Because they don't want to break the rules.
Right.
And so then they're hamstrung unnecessarily. Right.
I mean, so I understand the frustration, but in all honesty, if that's the worst we got, I think we're in a pretty good spot. You know, because that's
we all have our pet peeves.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Like another thing I would do is I'd have the find traps spell be able to find traps.
You were complaining about that in your video. Yeah.
That's a pet peeve.
Yeah.
Is that you have a spell, it's called find traps,
right,
and it doesn't find traps.
Yep.
What the hell? Right, and they have to add a line in the spell description that says this doesn't actually tell you the location of the trap.
What? So how do you feel about chill touch then? Tell me your thoughts on chill touch.
Well, I think it's close. I think a spell should do what the name implies. Call me crazy.
It is an ongoing joke at all of my games that anytime anybody casts chill touch, it's not a touch spell and it doesn't do cold damage. Woo!
I think a spell should do what its name implies. And if it doesn't, you should either redesign the spell so it does, or change the name.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to, Find Traps has to be called that because, like, in edition X, it was called that, and now it's tradition to have that spell, right?
Yeah.
I'd
just
imagine.
Have it find traps. It's not a big deal. It's a second level spell.
Yeah.
That is a significant resource to find a single friggin' trap.
Mm-hmm. Especially if it's got like a 1 minute duration or something, for sure.
Just let it do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's true. Second level, yeah.
If it found traps, it still wouldn't be overpowered spell at all. Right? It's still arguably a bad spell.
I have never had a cleric. This is almost 10 years of playing D&D 5th edition. I've never had a cleric have the Find Trap spell. And there's probably a reason. You know what I mean? Because it's just a bad spell.
It's a bad spell. It's something that other characters can do for free.
Right.
Another thing I would change for sure, and this is a bit of a cheat because it affects multiple spells.
Mm-hmm.
But I would change force barriers so that they can be broken
Okay.
through damage.
Right? Yes. Yep.
Give force barriers hit points, maybe lots of hit points.
Right.
But this invincible force barrier,
Yeah.
is no good. It's no good.
And from my point of view, or a game master's point of view too, or maybe just general point of view, the thing that I don't like about force cage spells or wall of force spells or the similar like is that they take people out of the game and they have nothing. It's like banishment. They have nothing they can do but hope that somebody breaks that person's concentration, you know. And in Force Cage, at least 2014 version, like that wasn't even a hope because it's 1 hour period of story. Take a short rest while you're in there, you know. So
and also as a DM, it could take your end encounter.
Yes.
And round 1, I won initiative. Combat's over.
Right. Yeah.
Right. What fun is that? Oh wow.
No.
Did we have a great time?
No. No.
The other players didn't even get to go.
Right.
Right. Or they're mopping up minions. So what I've ended up doing is, as a DM, if I have a big challenging monster, I always think, how are they going to get out of Force Cage?
Right.
When I design them, and it gets thrown in there. And maybe it's inconvenient for them, so Force Cage still does something, because I don't like to make it so that your stuff does nothing.
Right.
Right? But you got to do something, or you don't have a fight.
Correct. Correct.
And so, yeah, I would definitely make it so that those things aren't just... There's no way to surpass them. That's a problem.
I think as a game master, that's one of my big frustrations is abilities or spells that essentially de facto make it so that you don't play the game, right? Like, okay, you have divine intervention. If it works and then you wish for the in boss or whatever to just be gone and defeated, like, okay, that's great, but did you play the game? Did you have fun? Did you enjoy yourself? Or you use Wall of Force to seal off the bad guy from his minions. You mop up the minions over 2 rounds, and then you surround the bad guy, drop the Wall of Force, and then just have ready to actions that go off and drop him. Like, okay, well, that's clever the first time you do it after reading a Reddit post about it, but is it fun every single time? Or, you know?
Yeah, and also it might be a lot more fun if it's just one of the combats that you're going to have for the night, but you want that to be your final combat,
right?
The big fight, the climax.
That's a letdown. Exactly.
Yeah. Have no climax at all. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and that's like my frustration as a game master. The things that either take you out of the game, like banishment, or stop you from playing the game, like Force Cage, or Counterspell that stops you from playing the game, essentially. You know, and as a game master, it's like, I want to play the game. I want my players to play the game. And these sorts of things in the game that stop you from doing that are disappointing and are probably at the very top of my list of things that I would change about the game. Like anything that stops someone from playing the game is bad game design, or anything that like cheeses the game so that everybody skips the game, like you had suggested, you know, and it's just game over, or the combat's over in the first round and nobody did anything. All of those types of things, to me, are frankly bad game design, and I would just get them out of there so that we can all play the game. You know, let you do cool stuff, but the cool stuff doesn't have to be, hey, we're not playing the game tonight, guys. You know, it's kind of like that. There's that is it a consecration spell that some people will allow the cleric to cast this and have it cover the entire dungeon, and we're talking, what is it, like 4d10 whole damage per round? It's something stupid. It basically would clear out the entire dungeon, you know, as long as it's like Fey, undead, celestial.
You're thinking of Hollow.
Is that what it is? Okay, thank you. Yeah, Hollow. Like if you rule that a certain way, it's dungeon cleared out like that. You know what I mean? Essentially.
Yeah. Mirage Arcane is the same way as well. Technically speaking, the rules do prevent it.
Okay, how's that?
The issue is that most people have not read the rules. Most players have not read the rules.
Yeah.
They assume what the rules are. But if you read the rules on spellcasting, and this is true in 2014 too,
okay,
there are specific rules for area of effect spells.
Okay.
These are area of effect spells that when you hit a solid barrier, they stop. So you can't cast a spell on a dungeon assuming
Yes.
that the dungeon has corners.
And doors, right?
Never mind doors.
Right.
As long as it has corners, it doesn't work.
That's a good point.
It'll work
Yep.
in the room you're in. It'll work
Uh-huh.
a little bit, down the hallway.
Yeah.
But as soon as it hits a barrier, the area of effect stops, and that's the rules as they're written.
That's
in
a
the
good
book.
point. Yep.
But people don't know that, right?
Yeah.
And they
No,
read
yeah.
online that it works. That's
Uh-huh.
that's a horrible thing.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
you get these interactions that don't work,
Right.
and then somebody says online that they do work and they're broken, and it becomes a meme,
yeah.
and then everyone just assumes that it's accurate.
I mean, that's a great point. Like, I know that rule about barriers, but when I had a player do that hollow spell, like, it never occurred to me because he was basically just kind of arguing up and down that this is the way it works and stuff. And so what I did as a game master
Look
is
at this Reddit post. It says it works.
yeah. Well, what I did is, in retrospect, obviously, if I had thought of that rule, that could have been a quick conversation. But what I did is I just let it work, and then I allowed them to play the dungeon, and they all probably had a really crappy night
Yeah.
of running a dungeon where everything was dead, and they were like, and then finally, I think most of them were like, probably in their brains, they were like, this was a sucky adventure. None of us had any fun. I let them experience the natural consequence of introducing something like that to the game. Because if you don't let sometimes if you don't let players, if you don't let them just do the thing, and find out how bad it actually makes the game, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, let the necromancer have an army of 15 zombies. Let's let them do that, and let's see how horrible the game is when nobody else is playing or combat's boggy. And then let's have them come to the conclusion of, yeah, we probably shouldn't do this, huh?
Yeah. I think sometimes people think they want things until they get them.
Right.
And that's not true. That's true of everything in life.
Correct.
Right? Including D&D.
Yeah.
And I have had similar situations as a DM, and what I've done is not dissimilar from you. Is I say, if you want, we can do it this way, and we can have it. We can have you bypass all these encounters and pass wall your way to the boss,
Yep.
and so on and so forth. If you want to do that, that's fine. I'm okay running it that way, but I just want to make sure that that's what that is that actually what you, because we'll probably be done in an hour and a half.
Right.
Is that what you want?
Right.
And if they do, great, and we play it, and they have a sense of achievement that they've done this. Terrific. Right? No problem.
Yeah.
We had a short session and you had a good time, then I'm happy too. You came up with a clever solution. But sometimes they
clever.
go, no,
Yeah.
I would rather, I don't want that.
Right.
Well, then you can't do that. Right? Because that's the consequence of your plan working. That's
Right.
that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, there's part of me as the game master though, if I know my players are going to shortcut, let's say, something every single time with some cheesy effect, right? Then as a game master, I have to ask myself, why am I preparing the entire adventure if I know they're going to Arcane Eye or they're going to use Clairvoyance and then they're going to teleport right to the final boss? Like, if I know they can and will do that every time, why am I bothering creating a dungeon? I'm going to just not do it anymore. I'm going to stop doing it. And then if they decide not to, well, then they're going to have a substandard session as I'm making stuff up on the fly, which I can do, but you're not going to have as good of a game experience as if you allow me to prepare it properly,
Yeah. The one difference when I'm doing it is generally if I'm the DM, I'm running the same session for 5 different groups. So if one group shortcuts,
Yeah.
that's very different
Yep.
than having all that work of creating these encounters that I thought were interesting.
That's true.
And have them just skip them.
That's true.
I agree. You could reuse them.
Right.
Right? I like the idea I did there. I'm going to throw it in this other adventure. I probably would do that. But as long as I've got 4 out of 5 groups
Yeah.
doing the one group that shortcutted, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this idea of you can just reuse it, so it's not that big of a loss. I object a little bit to that because as a game master, half of my fun is designing the things to begin with, And then, yes, I do want to see my players experience them. That's the other part of the fun. But if they're constantly skipping stuff and I'm just rerunning or reusing the same ideas, I'm losing out on my fun of designing stuff, you know, to a certain extent. So yeah, I get the idea of reusing it, but more than likely, I'm much more likely to just, if they skip it, throw it out and then just design something else, because it scratches that itch that I have of designing something cool. You know what I mean? So, but I get it. You try to reuse if you can. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reuse. I got no compulsion against that. I like coming up with encounters, but they're also time consuming.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But encounters also take a half an hour plus at game table. So, I mean, and encounters, like if you're just trying to fill game time, you know what I mean, to get through a night, you know, but that's
not an encounter I care about saving. But sometimes you come up with that idea and you think, oh, this is cool. They're gonna like this.
Yeah.
And then if they don't do it, then I'm gonna probably reuse it.
Absolutely, yeah, I gotcha for sure. Yeah. All right. So, do you think that the 2024 design makes it easier or harder to be a dungeon master?
I think it makes no difference whatsoever.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Because there's nothing in there that's going to make it harder for you or easier. I mean, if you think that player characters all achieving this much more power is making it harder for you, then I guess so. I don't, because I'm already increasing the power level of things. I just increase them a little bit more.
Right.
And the fact that the characters are, in my opinion, the character classes are a little bit more balanced now than they were before, makes it easier for me. So the power creep doesn't bother me so much, and the rules. I mean, I guess it depends. If you're a new DM, I think it's easier because it is a lot easier to look up rules. Right? It's easier. You can read through the rules of this player's handbook much easier than you could in the old one, and less scattered, unclear stuff. But if you're an experienced DM and you know the rules, or you know which ones you need to look up versus the ones that you could just make up, or the ones that you remember, I don't think it's going to make much difference. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in here that I look at and go, "Ooh, that's going to be tough for DMs." I don't see that.
Yeah, it sounds like most of the change was just player options, classes, and stuff like that.
I mean, and it's the player's handbook.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And we might have a different discussion after the DM guide comes out. Right.
Yeah. For sure.
But it's the player's handbook. It's supposed to be player options or the player's book. And there is nothing in there I look at and go, oh boy, I don't know how I'm going to DM, this game anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
nothing.
When I first started listening to your videos and stuff, I know one of my initial thoughts was, I was, how would I explain it? I was like optimistic and happy because like they didn't do like a redesign of any core mechanics. So it's still backwards compatible, in essence.
It definitely is.
Yeah, and so I was kind of like, that is awesome. I think that, well, for a couple of reasons. One, as game masters and players, we aren't learning new rules. You kind of are because of different...
You are, but I think, like, I did that video that you're referencing is about 25 minutes, and I think everything you need to know is in that video.
Yeah.
And that's 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick.
But it's not like you play D&D 5th edition and now you're going to play Pathfinder 2. It's not like a total new rule set.
It's
like,
not a different game.
Yeah,
it's the same game.
Exactly. It's the same game, basic core rules with a few tweaks here and there. So transitioning from one edition to the next is not going to be that bad,
I don't know. No, I think it won't be hard for DMs at all.
Yeah,
I really don't. I think it'll be harder for players than for DMs because they have to actually read a new class and new features. To
a certain extent,
I feel bad for players who find that a chore because for me that's that's like cocaine.
Yeah.
Give me a new player feature to read.
I feel a similar.
I want to make a video to talk about it.
I feel similarly about Pathfinder 2 because as a game master, it's not that hard, and the rules I have to learn aren't that bad. But all of the player options for Pathfinder 2 and the feats, it's so complex. I'm like, my players have to figure all this out and make characters. I'm just like, wow, I'm glad I'm a game master. My life is easy. I don't know. If I did it more, I'd probably feel more comfortable with it. But I just kind of feel like game master's not that bad as creating a new character. Jeez, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I was happy to hear that for that reason. But also just because, there are a lot of people that have tons of published content out there, like products and stuff, that is 5th edition compatible. And if they had redesigned core mechanics, all of a sudden people's books and stuff don't work anymore. And I'm one of those people, obviously,
To my understanding, there is some third-party products that people are having to redesign.
Okay.
Because they have made the rules to be backwards compatible, but they can't predict every third-party thing that interacts with some rule that doesn't exist anymore or is handled differently.
Yeah.
They can't change anything and have it be compatible with all third-party material, right?
Yeah.
Then they have to simply reprint the 2014 Player's Handbook. Otherwise, there's just no way. So some third-party designers do have to redesign some things, particularly character options, right?
Yep.
So you made your custom subclass and it gave you something to do with surprise, and now surprise rules are different, so now you have to change it.
Yeah, little tweak or something. I know one of the things that I've almost finished writing and will be a future product that we put out there and stuff and sell is Escape from the Fae. But it's an adventure module. Now there are some player options, but those aren't that many. It's like 3 subclasses. Most of the things are adventures.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
And monsters. And so probably what I would look to do is look at the monsters in the context of anything that changed the DMG or the monster manual to make sure our monsters are still okay. But also just like encounter balancing. If they release fresh rules on that, take a look at that. Consider if we want to change anything in light of the fact that 2025 characters are a little bit more powerful, you know what I mean? But those are like small adjustments that I feel like aren't really that big of a deal,
Yeah, if I have a third-party adventure, I change nothing, and it's fine, right? Because the fact is your adventure is easy for some people and it's hard for other people already.
That's true.
And you can tweak it all you want, and that's still going to be the case.
That's true.
And it's going to be up to the game master who buys your product and reads it and knows their players and knows the party and goes and you get this intuition. That is going to be too easy. This is going to be a problem. They need to do this challenge here, and this is not the kind of role playing that my players enjoy. And so you're going to be making adjustments anyways. When I buy an adventure, whether it's third party or official, it's always the same. I start with what they gave me, and then I change it. Right? And I seldom keep anything exactly the same. I tailor it for my table. And I think DMs, I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
I know there are DMs who just run the adventures exactly as they're written. Yeah. But those are the tend to be the DMs who also have newer players, I think.
There was only one. I started to run Prince of the Apocalypse a while ago. And I told my group, I literally want to run this as written without any changes just to see how well it works, And so I was trying to be pretty faithful to it, but not entirely. There were always little tweaks, but mostly I was mostly running it as written. We didn't make it through that campaign. They wanted to go back to homebrew stuff more than they wanted to keep playing Prince of the Apocalypse. But I agree. Most game masters are going to change stuff pretty heavily.
Yeah. And you think of Princess of the Apocalypse, that came out very early.
Correct. Yeah.
So how much power creep has there been since then?
Oh yeah.
When is that that's before the Gloomstalker. That's before the Twilight Cleric. That's before you could adjust your ability scores wherever you want on your
Yes.
That all came after Princess of the Apocalypse. It was not balanced for the game that we're playing now.
Correct.
pre-2024 Player's Handbook. So
yeah,
it already wasn't balanced.
yeah. We had a super chat. I missed it. So this is from Drunken Yoda. They say, should components go the way of alignment? So back to our conversation about spellcasting components, should they just disappear completely? Similar to how I guess they're implying that alignment is going to be gone from the game or something, which isn't true.
Alignment is still in the game.
Yeah, it's still in the game.
It just has no mechanical impact.
Okay.
So are they saying? I mean, I think components have a place. I think if you're going to have a magic wand, you should need to use the magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think that it's something that, as a DM, maybe what they mean is that with alignment, it's in the game, but we don't really care.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of groups play it that way already. So.
Yeah. So maybe that's what they're suggesting with components, is that we have them, we know that you're using your wand, but we're not going to police it.
Well,
and I can see doing that at your table. You can either police it a lot, which I don't think is going to be great, or a tiny bit, which is kind of what I'm going to be doing, or maybe not at all, and maybe that's the way for your table.
Yeah, I totally agree. Really quick, we do have a giveaway going on tonight, guys. I forgot to tell you guys at all during the stream, but there should be a link in the chat somewhere where you can enter the giveaway. You'll get $50 DM Lair store credit. I will draw the winner to that in just a little bit here. So if you're interested, go sign up for that and you'll get some cool, the winner will get some cool stuff. So the thought I had on components is that there are some spells in the game whose balance 100% or greatly depends upon a material cost to the spell component.
Okay, you're talking about costly components. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, that's a different story. Like for instance, Hero's Feast got an update, and did they add how did they update it exactly? You were talking about it in one of your videos, but I can't remember the details.
Did you say Hero's Feast at the same time I did?
Yeah, Hero's Feast, yes.
Yeah, okay, we did. All right. The way they changed it is, so the component is the same.
Okay.
Same costly component.
Okay.
What they did is, it used to give immunity to poison. It now gives resistance to poison.
Okay.
And I think, I can't think of it off the top of my head. There's other ways it has been toned down as well. It's still a really powerful spell,
right?
But it could be kind of we were talking about spells that kind of make your adventure, turn off.
Right.
Hero's Feast could be one of them.
Yeah.
And it's no longer that spell.
Because it would give you advantage on certain saving throws too.
Yeah,
right?
wisdom saving throws, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I think. I'm trying to remember if intelligence and charisma saving throws are included. I can't recall off the top of my head.
It was powerful. And with the way that the core game recommends you.
And you were immune to frightened, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I think you still are immune to frightened.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check.
Yeah. But to a certain extent, one could make the argument that material cost to spell components is trivial because the core game recommends that you give out so much gold. And there's nothing to spend it on anyway, so,
I think it can be trivial for ones where, like the new summoning spells where you have a costly component, but it's not consumed.
Yeah.
But you're consuming 1,000 gold pieces worth of components every single time. I don't know. I guess it depends. Depends on your table.
That's true. Oh, chromatic orb. That was one you were talking about where
there's
now
silly.
A cost to it, but it's 25...
It's always had a cost. It's always had a cost.
But now the cost
I think it's 50 gold pieces.
So it's out of reach.
It's a first level spell.
Yeah, but it's out of reach kind of for first level characters.
Yeah, for a first level character can't afford it.
Right.
Yeah. It's a first level spell.
And that's like when I was listening to your videos, there were some of those instances like that where you were talking about some of that stuff, and I was just like, what were they thinking? Like, why would you do this?
Yeah.
And it all that, which kind of triggers a related thought, I suppose, which is like, what happened with the playtesting? You can't tell me that nobody brought that up in playtesting. Like,
nobody brought it. Nobody brought it up in playtesting because it wasn't in the playtest. It is exactly the same. Well, no, it is different. They actually improved it from the old version because I forget, it has a little bouncing effect. But chromatic orb was not in the playtest. It's always had a 50 gold piece component.
Oh, okay.
Always, right? Like so they didn't add it.
So it's always been out of reach.
I'm telling you that when it comes to things I'm not satisfied with this player's handbook, it is almost 100% stuff they didn't change, not stuff they did change.
Gotcha. So if they had more time and to actually dig in and do the stuff, they probably wouldn't have been able to touch everything. But our theory is
I mean, what I want and what
and
what the rest of the community wants, or the entire player base wants, are going to be different things. We all want different things.
Sure.
So nobody's ever going to be 100% satisfied with the player's handbook. But I think there are things that most people wanted that didn't happen.
Yeah. Were there things that got changed in the final version that were never exposed or shown in the playtest? Like just sudden surprises?
Yeah, like the surprise rules.
Okay.
For example, right? Talk about surprise.
There you go.
Surprise. So the surprise rules in the old player's handbook are massive, right? If you have surprise, then the opponent doesn't do anything on the first round of combat. It gives you a free round.
It's huge. Now it's just like advantage or something, right?
You get advantage on initiative.
Right.
You get advantage on initiative if you're hidden.
Okay.
They get disadvantage on initiative if they're surprised.
Gotcha.
So at best, you're winning initiative.
Yeah.
That's very, very different than an entire free round.
But hold on a second.
Not in the playtest.
I don't understand this. When are they going to playtest things that weren't in the playtest? Like, I would think this. So maybe I don't understand how playtests are supposed to work, but I would think that if you're going to playtest something, you change all the rules, right? You give it to people to playtest in their entirety. You take feedback. You do another revision in the entirety. You give it to people to playtest because you got to see all the interactions and how things work together. Then there's a few rounds of that, and finally you give it to people, and it's like, yeah, everything's kind of working okay. But like, if things never got into the playtest and they just suddenly appear, when does the playtest happen? Like live right now with our final book, you know?
Well, supposedly there was developer playtesting behind the scenes.
Okay.
Right? So they were doing their own playtesting. And then there was a public playtest. And the public playtest, I think, was partially to gauge opinions. I think it was partially to hype things up.
I think,
right?
Look
at this cool thing that we gave to this class. And then, you know, the players look at it and go, "Ooh, I can hardly wait to see this in the player's handbook." Right?
I am going to take a more radical opinion on that. I think that the public playtest, and I always use air quotes when I say playtest, I think the public playtest was 90% to gauge opinion and to hype it up to get people to want the books. I think it was mostly that. If they got some feedback that was useful and actionable according to their publishing timelines and stuff, they might have taken action on it. But I think it was mostly...
I know that happened.
Yeah,
I know that happened because I covered the playtest, and we had, you know, I was talking to 30,000 people. And, you know, saying, hey, we need to let them know this thing.
Yeah.
And then the next playtest would come around and it would be addressed.
Cool.
Often with the exact wording that I recommended.
Okay, so we have demonstrable fact that they were taking the feedback seriously and making changes.
100%.
Cool.
100%.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, cool. Well, that makes me feel better, I suppose, because the last thing you want is like tons of people giving feedback and then somebody ignoring it, you know?
Yeah.
So
there was rumors that they weren't reading any of the comments, and supposedly an insider who confirmed that they weren't reading the comments. And I can tell you, I am certain that was false information and that they were reading the comments. So I'm 100%
certain. We really just have the people that are just overly negative and basically want to just perpetuate whatever negative crap they can to make this company look bad and crap like that. Yeah.
That's right. Right. Yeah. And people have legitimate beefs with Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
But there's a lot of illegitimate stuff.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people are angry, and then there's an opportunity to get attention.
Yes, that's huge too, and it's a rough story because you do YouTube, and you know that if you put out a video with a thumbnail that talks about a scandal or a crisis, you're gonna get 10 times as many views as if you just say, "Hey,
that's what I hear."
Oh yeah, because
I don't do that.
well,
I have a principle
well, you don't.
thing. I don't do that. I do
Uh-huh.
measured takes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to hear about it. You could just go out on YouTube in the D&D
Oh,
niche.
I know that you should do that. I know I should do that.
Should do it. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard though. Yeah.
I don't want to be the person who does that. That's
Yeah.
I quit my last job because I didn't like it, and I like this job.
Yeah.
And I want to keep liking it, and if that means fewer views, so be it. Right?
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm looking forward to making content. If I was making hit videos, I'd hate it. I'd really hate this job.
I mean, I feel that because if I look at some of the videos that tend to do the best, it's those that talk about the latest news, and especially if you can take a hot news item and put a negative take on it and turn it into a scandal, those do super well. I strongly dislike doing news type videos because I'm offering no long-term value to anybody. Like most of my videos, not all of them, but most of them, what I'm attempting to do is help dungeon masters do X, Y, and Z so they can run better games and their players have more fun. But when you do learning videos like that, it's hard to twist it into like some crisis attention getting scandal thing, and so I'm in the same boat as you. A lot of my videos just don't get a lot of views.
This isn't journalism, right? Like what they're doing is they're taking a rumor and profiting and finding a way to make it work for their YouTube channel to get them views and get them super chats or whatever. They want their piece of the money pie of this latest scandal, and who gives a crap if it is factual or not. Right. Because there's so much stuff that they make up, or they don't research, but they'll just take the worst possible view on this rumor.
Yes.
And because it's bad, it must be true.
Yeah.
And I'll report it as fact. And the annoying thing is there's things that are legitimate. Right.
Right.
The OGL happened.
Yes. So
and making up all this fake stuff like this art is AI. No. And often the victims aren't Wizards of the Coast. They're independent artists who are working hard and are getting maligned because somebody thinks they're taking a hit at Wizards of the Coast. It pisses me off.
Right. And like there are channels you could go to where every single week there's a new scandal video that comes out, and it's like there's not a new scandal every week. Are you kidding me?
And the scandal just got worse.
No, Chris. It always gets worse. Always. Like every week it gets worse. I'm like rolling my eyes at this crap, because it's not doing anybody a service. It's purely capitalizing on this human need, I guess, to like freak out and like have a crisis. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it obviously gets views, but it's not serving humanity at all. It's not making the world a better place.
Here's what I will say. I'm glad they're making that content so that the viewers who want that content aren't on my channel.
That's fair. That's a great point. They could have that community, I suppose.
They can have them. Have them. I don't want to have to look at their comments.
And you made a comment too about it's a shame, or something related about along the lines of it's a shame that there's so much of that, because there are some things that are actually legitimate. Like I'm literally working on a video right now that I'm planning on releasing on Saturday that talks about Patreon's change. Like Patreon is making a change to their billing model where
for Apple.
Yeah, due to Apple. And that is going to have some pretty dramatic effects on pay per content subscription models. Like, for instance, Chipeku and Limithron, who makes the Pirate Board game, and Tom Kartos, I believe, they're all pay per creation. And when they get basically forced to go to the subscription model, they're going to have their revenue decreased by a lot, like not small, not trivial. And so I'm right now trying to work on a video, and I'm in the chat group with all these folks, and I'm like getting the information from them, trying to educate myself, and I'm putting together a script. I put it off to them to say, hey, review this. Let me know if this is factual. Let me know what I should be changing. And then now I asked, there's a lawyer in that chat. I'm like, hey, can you look at this and make sure that I'm not saying stuff that's unfactual so that like I can get pegged for slander or something? Like I'm trying to make sure that this video is is actually going to do a service and raise awareness about a real issue, and so I am going to literally have a video come out on Saturday that's going to have some scandalous title and stuff, but because it literally is a big problem for certain content creators, but there's a chance that people are going to think that, oh, Luke's just trying to get attention.
Well, here's what'll happen is some people will read the title.
Yeah.
And they'll assume that it's like all the other content.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate thing is that real issues that affect real people.
Right.
That we know that that are scared.
Yes. Can you
like,
imagine if your business took a 40% hit to revenue in like a month?
I'd be out of business.
You'd be done.
I'd be looking for other work. Yeah.
If that happened to me, I think Zach, my employees in the chat, like if I took a 40% hit overnight, I'm sorry, Zach, and all my contractors, like I can't pay the bills anymore. What do you want me to do? And there are literally content creators right now with the Patreon changes that are staring at that. And in November, they could be facing that reality,
Yeah.
So it's scary for some of them, and they're literally are there any legal things that we can do? And there was in this chat, there was some comments going on about like, yeah, we could try to fight this or something, but it might cost $150,000 to do so. And somebody responded, this guy here might lose that much in 1 month because of this change. This is not a small deal. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's serious. So, but the point is like when everybody's making up fake scandals and fake crises, the real stuff is less visible, when it's actually important. So I totally get that. But that is an unrelated rabbit hole.
We could have a whole other chat just about that.
Oh, we totally could. So, all right. So we had a giveaway going on. The winner to that giveaway is Patrick from Ohio. Patrick from Ohio. I will be sending you an email. We'll get you hooked up with $50 DM Lair store credit, and you can go get a whole bunch of 5th edition or Pathfinder 2 resources over on our store. So, all right, Chris, stay on with me after we end the live stream. Okay. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. You've made me
enjoyed the fight talk.
You have made me feel a whole lot better about the new rules, because like I'm in the dark here. I don't have the book, and so I'm just relying upon people like you that are going to share what you know, and I feel pretty positive about it, so I really do appreciate it. I wanted to feel positive, but there's always that part of you that's like, so yeah.
Well, I mean, you'll open the book and there will be things you look at and you go, why? I don't like that. But we're all gonna have that for sure. Yeah. But overall, I think you'll be happy with it.
Cool, awesome, thanks a lot, and everybody. Treantmonk's link to his channel is down in the chat or down in the comments too. So please go. He's trying to get 100K. He's very close. Let's get him his silver play button. So
yes,
go show him some love. So all right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we're gonna punch the out at this point as soon as I find the button. So goodbye, everybody.